All worry is atheism. All worry is atheism because worry is a lack of or a want of trust in God. The Venerable Bishop Fulton Sheen certainly had a gift for penetrating the human experience and putting things pointedly. And the phrase, all worry is atheism, is a pertinent case in point. Because if we truly believe what our Lord says in today's gospel, then Fulton Sheen is absolutely right. All worry, whether it be large or small, familial or corporate, personal or global, ultimately reflects a lack, a want of trust in God. So if you and I, who say we have faith, constantly succumb to that debilitating experience of worry and worrying, then we have to ask ourselves, am I any different to an atheist? Now, it goes without saying that it is very hard not to give in to worry. It's very hard not to give in to the temptation to sit down and ruminate upon all the various scenarios, all the possible outcomes, all the concerning consequences that stem from a particular concern about the future, which in truth, no matter how hard we try, ultimately we have no control over. But yet it's so tempting just to sit and think about this option and that consequence and that outcome and worry. And yet such instances are clear opportunities for us to actually see for ourselves whether we actually mean what we say when we say, Jesus, I trust in you. Yeah, they're nice words. Jesus, I trust in you. And they're really easy to say. Jesus, I trust in you. But do they actually have any bearing on my and your existence? And we see whether they do when those scenarios where we're inclined to worry arise. If they don't have any bearing on our existence, if we frequently give in to that temptation just to worry, then what we've done is revealed our agnosticism. Perhaps even a subtle atheism, but at the very least, a weakness of faith. For what is worry? What is it? When you interrogate the experience of worrying, what is it? Well, very often it's just a form of self-love, that desire to want to be in control for our safety, our security, our stability. In other words, it often is revolving around the self. And now, obviously, we all have concerns. We all have problems. We all experience tragedy. The question is, what do we do, or how do we react when those frightful situations emerge? Worrying is the opposite of trust, and the absence of trust is actually the absence of love. We do not truly love another. We do not truly love another if we do not trust the other. So as Saint Teresa of Lisieux said, it's trust and nothing but trust that must bring us to the love of God. If we do not trust in God, then there's no way we can be in love with God. Because, our Lord says something really interesting in today's gospel. It's really, really interesting. Do not let your hearts be troubled. We hear that line all the time. It's really popular at funerals. Do not let your hearts be troubled. But do we actually think about the importance or the implication of what he's actually saying there? Do not let your hearts be troubled. Where is our Lord putting the emphasis? Who's ultimately responsible for experiencing a troubled heart? Us. He doesn't say, do not worry, but in this situation it's all right to worry. He doesn't put any caveats, he doesn't put up any hypotheticals. He simply says, do not let your hearts be troubled. That's a really important thing to remember. It's quite counterintuitive, but what he's really saying is that we quite literally have to choose to worry. Do not let. You choose to worry. I choose to worry. We have to deliberately choose not to trust in God. We are the ones responsible for our worrying. It's not out there. The scenarios might be out there, but ultimately our Lord is saying, do not let. You don't need to worry. You have to let yourselves worry. And you know, what is the sign of a troubled heart? What is the sign of a troubled heart? Well, many would say it would include things like this: constant anger, anxiety, lukewarmness, the feeling of panic, boredom, cheating, fantasizing all the time, a fear, lying to others, a low self-esteem, pride, and perhaps most importantly of all, an inability to sacrifice ourselves for others. In other words, selfishness. And that could be an inability to sacrifice ourselves for those we love, our family, but it could also be a sign when we're not prepared to come to Mass, we're not prepared to give God time. That's likely the sign of a troubled heart looking for consolation in other things. Because all of those things, all of those experiences turn our attention, our thoughts and our concerns to ourselves. All those emotions turn us inward. In other words, we are just trusting in our own power, and ironically, it's by trusting in our own power that's the cause of the problem. That's the cause of the trouble. That's the cause of our anxiety. And Catholicism becomes such an empty religion if we don't counteract those tendencies and trust. In other words, we would just be atheists. For the opposite of atheism would be to do as our Lord recommends. Trust in God still. Trust in God still. And trust in me. Now imagine what the world would look like if every human being heeded that sacred invitation. Imagine what our world would look like. Because how many dreadful decisions, how many catastrophic decisions, how much war and violence is a result of a desire of one individual wanting to take control of the future. To conquer our individual worries by following my way, by constructing my theories of truth and redefining the purpose of my life. In contrast, what kind of heart would we have if we actually trusted in God and really meant it? What would be the sign that we actually loved God enough to trust Him, to put Him first? Well, it would be a heart in which every beat is a conscious prayer. It will be a heart so alive to grace that it would only find life and joy and hope in God and never in momentary pleasures or distractions. It will be a heart so enlivened by hope that it never despairs even in suffering. It will be a heart so committed to truth that will be unafraid to proclaim it, even at the risk of being unpopular or politically incorrect. In short, an untroubled heart is a holy heart, a heart that rests in God, a saintly heart who reveals to us what exactly the heart was made for: to trust in order to love and to be loved. So in this month of May, a month traditionally dedicated to Our Lady, the mother of our hearts, we find in her a heart that was pierced by the death of her son, but a heart that never stopped trusting. So let's turn to her in moments of worry. Let's turn to her when we're inclined to give in to worry. And let us ask her to help us to have the strength to realize that a Catholic has no time for worrying, even at the foot of our own cross.